Hello, everybody. This is Jeremy Martin from Cinco Medicos, and I wanted to make a brief video about San Pedro and depression and how this medicine helps us to heal our mind and our heart and our body if we are suffering from depression. I won't get into my own history with depression. I will just say that I suffered with depression for many years, and I also suffered from addiction, chronic pain, panic attacks, and many things of that nature. So if you want to learn more about my own story, feel free to visit my website at cincomedicos.com. But for this video, I'm just going to be talking about how San Pedro can help with things like depression and helps us to heal from our mind, body, and heart. And so I'll start by saying that this beautiful, beautiful plant helps us to understand the very nature of fear, our fears in particular, and we get a lot of crystal clarity about where those fears come from and how they're not serving us, and the illusions that we are creating by believing stories that aren't even ours. That may sound very abstract to some of you, but when we start to understand our life as it truly is and who we truly are, that's when we can start to rewrite the stories that are not serving us. And a story could be as simple as, I'm worthless and I am never going to heal from my depression. I'm not good enough, or I'm a burden, the world's a terrible place, and there's no hope. These are stories. These are beliefs that are very deeply entrenched in our worldview, and they can be very hard to question without the help of a master plant, a master teacher like Wachuma or San Pedro. And we start to understand where these stories came from, whether they were our parents, whether they were teachers at school, politicians, the news, doctors, anybody in a role of authority, that we started to believe these stories that were handed down to us. We forgot how to write our own script. And this medicine empowers us to become the author of our own book or story. And we can also understand, without any judgment or self-criticism, how these stories were damaging us, because the more we believe in them, the less we're able to see things as they truly are. And wisdom is not just the ability to see things as they are, but to see through them, to see through the fear, to see through the illusion, so that we can fashion that new narrative. And as we start to do that, as we start to heal the mind, that's when the heart starts to open. You know, the future no longer seems in the mind like something to dread or fear and feel paralyzed about. It's much more beautiful. It's much more like it actually is. You know, a landscape whose horizons are infinite, and we can look forward to walking that path towards it with heartfelt confidence. And depression oftentimes seems like a contraction of the mind, and so San Pedro helps to expand our mind so that we can feel it with our heart what is true. And as our heart starts to feel fed and fertilized and nourished, we have this calm sense of wisdom of how to be here now while also changing our thoughts and behaviors in a therapeutic way so that we can become better versions of ourselves in the future. And it's in this way that San Pedro helps to reshape our worldview, and we can understand our own divine power. We feel so naturally good now because we can finally do what we love, and we can be more creative, we can be more self-expressive. And this is huge, absolutely huge for people who are suffering from depression, because people who have depression don't love themselves. They hate themselves, and they feel as if it's utterly impossible to change or to do anything, to just eat, let alone get out of bed. And so with this new found self-love as that grows, so does self-care. So do the actions that allow us to change our thoughts, behaviors, belief systems, so that we can take and make actionable change in our lives. Whether that's moving where, say we're living in a city and we hate it there, we can move. Say that's taking matters into our own hands by switching people in our friend group. Maybe that's starting to eat again if you haven't been eating very well, or eating too much, or maybe it's taking a walk around the block. Maybe it's starting a new project like writing a book or something artistic. The point is, this action is the real deal. Before drinking San Pedro, a depressed person is living from such a constricted place that they lack the proper motivation and the proper drive necessary to change their life in ways that matter and have meaning to them. And that's why they present with so much apathy and feel so helpless about how to become unstuck. Most people go to therapy and they're like, I'm stuck. But as one participant put it to me very eloquently, she described the feeling as, it's like, oh, right. And she was expressing the clarity of the mind, seeing things as they actually are, but also the joy in our heart, and also the relaxed sensation in her body, because depression, as people who suffer from it know, is very much a somatic illness. It's psychosomatic, and it's the body's freeze response to what it perceives as a threat. So plant medicines like San Pedro, as well as mushrooms and ayahuasca and ibogaine and things like that, they help to restore balance by allowing us to safely release that freeze response, or the traumatic imprint that we're oftentimes carrying in the body, the memory of that freeze response. And for me, that manifested as tremors and shaking during ayahuasca ceremonies, and mushrooms, and morning glories, as well as a little bit on San Pedro. But by that time, I had healed mostly all of that trauma in my nervous system. But I have seen many other people heal their bodies and feel much more comfortable. They've healed chronic pain and chronic fatigue, which is oftentimes a downstream effect of the depression. It's the body saying, I can't do this anymore. And so when we heal our nervous system and we feel safe in the body, rather than dissociated and feeling like we want to get out of it, you start to love your body. You start to feel safe and relaxed in it. And again, I'm not alone in this. I've seen many, many ceremony participants drink plant medicines like San Pedro, release trauma locked in the body. And it's that first step, release, that's what leads to resolution. Once we release it, that's when we can start to resolve the memory of the trauma and to alleviate both the psychological and the physical symptoms of the illness, so that we can live from the heart. So in short, San Pedro can teach a depressed person to love themselves once again, to get a new lease on life, and it's much more sustainable than peyote. It's much more accessible than ayahuasca. And as one of my teachers used to say, it likes to be cut. Because when you do cut it, actually 1, 2, 3, even 4 pups, they're called, grow from the cutting. And they're like loving little hydra heads of medicine. So this medicine is here to help humanity evolve. But we do need to do the work on ourselves. It's dirty, oftentimes difficult work. And in the West, we've learned to be very passive about our own healing. We tend to go to the doctor to just tell us what to do and tell me what to take, tell me when to come back, and we expect the pills or prescriptions to be on refill and that they're just going to do the work for us. But as many are now learning, this isn't how healing works. It never has been. Healing is more of a rebellious act. It's a proactive taking responsibility for yourself and your sickness. And so you have to be ready and willing to do the work. Just like with addiction, if you don't want to stop drinking or using, you're not going to. Nothing, no rehab, no AA or NA is going to help you. You have to want it. You have to have enough suffering, unfortunately, enough pain to motivate you out of that nadir in your life, because it's trying to teach you something. And unless you want to learn the lesson, you're not going to. So just like nobody can remember your childhood or sit with your anger, just like nobody else can forgive you for your mistakes the way you can, just you have to do it and be very serious about doing it. And so if you are depressed and you are looking for options, there are options. And again, I went through the whole pharmaceutical Western medical model for years and didn't get help until I arrived at plants. And San Pedro is nearest and dearest to my heart. So if you are interested in sitting with this medicine or would like to learn more, feel free to visit my website at cincomedicos.com. Send me an email at cinco.medicos@protonmail.com. And just think about how you might mentally want to prepare, what intentions you have, how you want to explore certain sides of yourself that you're having trouble reconciling and accepting. But if you do feel called to do this work, please get in touch, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and have a blessed day. Bye.